Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions. Thank you again so much for our time together. Tonight we start Revival Nights out at East Campus. We'll be working on the beauty of the Father's grace. Too often we think that grace only began in the New Testament, at the end of the Gospels of the book of Acts. But in actuality, we have received grace in Christ Jesus from before time. The Father has always been a gracious God. Right now, I want to talk to you about Acts chapter 21. We see a lot of things happening in the news today and a lot of legal changes that are happening in the world and persecution against Christians either for what they believe or even for who they are. And I think maybe this is a good time to understand that Paul learned how to use his legal rights. Let me say that again. Paul learned how to use his legal rights. The story picks up in verse 37. As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, they've arrested him in Jerusalem. He asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started the revolt and led 4,000 terrorists into the desert some time ago?" Paul answered, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." Having received the commander's permission, now go over to chapter 22, and we see it again. Verse 26, verse 25. As they stretched him out to flog him, Paul said to the centurion standing there, "Is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who hasn't even been found guilty?" When the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and reported. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "This man is a Roman citizen." The commander went to Paul and asked him, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes, I am," he answered. Then the commander said, "I had to pay a big price for my citizenship, but I was born a citizen," Paul replied. Those who were about to question him withdrew immediately. The commander himself was alarmed when he realized he had put Paul, a Roman citizen, into change. Now, this is a fascinating thing to see, an evolution of how Paul learned that when you're in a hard spot of persecution, you don't always need to take it. Sometimes as Christians, please forgive me for saying this, but we want suffering. And excuse me, no, we should not. Sometimes as Christians, we think, "Oh, I can endure this," when we don't even have to take it. Now, notice a few things about how Paul used his legal rights. Number one, he was polite. He was not nasty. He was not mean. "May I say something to you?" He was very polite. He was very soft-spoken. He realized these people have all the authority and I have nothing except my legal rights. So he spoke very softly. "May I say something?" Now, this persecution that was coming against him at this time was, forgive me, even this commander didn't know why he was in jail. He thought he was an Egyptian that led a revolt. He had no clue who Paul was and why these people have arrested him. He had no clue what was going on. He just saw trouble and was trying to stop trouble. Later, when they wanted to question him and they stretched him out to flog him, again, Paul exercised his rights. He said, "Is it right to flog a Roman citizen before he's been found guilty?" Now, these soldiers know the penalty that would be extracted from them for doing such a thing. Now, I would like to challenge you today as Christians. When people begin to use legalities to challenge us and they use the government against us, whether it's homosexual marriage, whether it's taxes, whatever it is, when people begin to use governing authorities against the church, as Christians, we need to very humbly and very gently learn to exercise our legal rights also.